We start by thinking that we are just this separate individual encased in this physical solid body in a world of forms, all separate in their own little encased covers, people with flesh, cars with metal, whatever, and a world that could be more or less hostile, a world in which we have to struggle to attract and possess things that give us power, well-being, and then we have to protect ourselves from the hostile attacks of this outside world. That's the usual normal state of the mind. Now, I will explain that in Buddhism, the answer to who are you is very conservative. Buddhism teaches mostly by negation. A lot of emphasis on the emptiness of self, emptiness of the world. The emptiness of self, of course, means it's empty. What is empty of is any solid, permanent, lasting existence. The law of impermanence says everything changes, and the self changes. If you think of when you were 5 as to when you were 20, if you're 20 to 40, it's almost like different people, different lives. So we could even speak of reincarnations within one lifetime, because rebirth occurs really every moment, and thought and karma propel the result of the next moment, which binds us to the past. So Buddhism speaks of Buddha nature. We do say every conscious being, not just even people, but animals and everything in the universe that has awareness, has a Buddha nature, and that this Buddha nature can be brought out by dissolving the blockages to wisdom, blockages as wrong beliefs, wrong emotions, and that's what we do with practice. We dissolve these barriers, and then our Buddha nature, just like the sun covered with clouds, as the clouds dissolve, shines in its full force. Now our Buddha nature is indestructible, unborn, undying. So it's outside of the world of phenomena. So putting Buddhism in that context, that's an optimistic proposition. People sometimes think Buddhism is pessimistic because we say everything is impermanent, everything is ends, attachment to impermanent things brings about suffering. Well, then what do? The answer is, again, with practice, with meditation, with other things that we can discuss in other occasions, to dissolve the barriers to this nature that is within all of us, that is sane, that is loving. It involves the mind and the heart. You might say it's wise and compassionate, and this would shine forth through us. So that's as far as Buddhism might go to speak of our Buddha nature. But let's take it a little farther. Again, we were saying you think of yourself, and I will say I'm drawing from sources like the Upanishad, the Hindu Upanishad, non-dual teachings, and Eckhart Tolle, who are much more explicit about this. Again, you saw yourself as this encapsulated, fleshy being, but as we practice meditation, we begin to see that there is this stable awareness. In fact, is the very awareness that we use to practice. We sit, we follow the breath. This awareness, by following the breath, begins to kind of get unstuck from all the objects it is identified with. So that's the problem when we find ourselves lost in the world, is because we're identified with form, with all physical things that, what we call physical things. So as we practice meditation, we begin to see that there's a space, there's a gap between us and these phenomena, so we're not caught. Already this is the beginning of freedom, because as an emotion comes up, as a strong feeling comes up, we find we have more of a capacity to not react, to not act it out, to not suppress it. I would consider that this first stage, the first stage in the world is what I described before, self and other. You are in the world separate from things, struggling with things, trying to attract good things, and so on. And then the stage that I'm talking about now, meditation, we might call the spiritual eye. Now we have a separation. Here is awareness, here is the physical eye. Physical eye is in its little world looking at objects, but awareness is separate. Awareness is not caught, you might say, we're, as we say, in the world but not of it. So what you are, you're identified with these things, but really what you are is this pure awareness, which it's kind of a revolutionary thing to think about. It's unborn and it's undying. So the shift in identification and the removal of the attachments and the dissolution of the emotional obscurations brings about the notion that we actually are this presence that has no substance. That's why it's called empty and cognizant. Has no substance, but has the capacity to be aware, and also has the capacity to radiate into our world and modify our personality. So that's why Eckhart Tolle says when you practice presence, you're bringing this presence into the world. So we are this pure awareness, unborn, undying. Can't look at it. You can't turn your awareness around and look at it. So all we know is we see through it. Well, that's an amazing revolutionary shift in identification. The pure awareness is not a thing, it's not an object, we can't objectify it, and again, it can be experienced in the now. You experience it as it happens, and it's called awareness, being aware of itself, real time, that very moment. So since there's no gap, there's no time for the mind to report back to itself about experiences and label them and so on. It's pure presence. Now, if we go one step further, if this is not mind-blowing enough, certainly was for me, it took me many years to realize this, so I'm hoping to save you some time, then I think there's a further shift where we realize awareness is a whole world. It isn't like we have this sort of pure, remote, crystal clear awareness, but in fact, every object we see, everything we experience, our body, our physical body, is the space of awareness, and you are the space of awareness. So you might say that in you, the world manifests. You're creating the world. Now, the usual idea is, well, you know, there's a car out there, I look at it, hits my eye, my brain processes it. But in fact, another way to look at it is that all objects that you experience when you consider it, and I think, again, meditation and long, maybe years of practice gets you to the depth where you begin to see that everything you experience is mind. The colors that you see are really being read by your mind. Even the physical, what we call the physical, the touch, where does that register? We don't know what we call the physical directly. It manifests in mind. You know, the scientists tell us that what we're experiencing is two magnetic fields repulsing each other. So in a way, we can break down even the physical appearance into atoms, and the atoms into magnetic fields. So even in that way, the appearance that's physical is not purely physical. But in this way, what we're saying is all this manifests in your awareness. It's usually propelled by karma. But in any case, the realization that you are that space in which everything manifests, again, it's profound. It's like you are a participant in creation. So anyway, I hope this is not too confusing. Fortunately, it can be replayed. So I'm going to leave you now. I hope this is helpful. And again, I went far beyond what Buddhism might state. Basically, again, that we have a Buddha nature, that everybody has the same quality. Sojo Rinpoche says, my Buddha nature is as good as any Buddha's Buddha nature. Your Buddha nature is as good as any Buddha's Buddha nature. But that's the potential. Ignorance can be purified, but to do nothing about it is like saying the dishes in your kitchen can be washed and cleaned and made to shine, but you never wash them. So you have to practice. This is not something that you achieve by belief. It has to be experienced directly, and we'll discuss at other times different pointers and different ways to get along that line. So again, thank you for your attention, and I'm going to say goodbye now. I hope you enjoyed